Hey, I'm Marauder again, and I'm back with another ridiculously stupid YouTube video just for you. So I asked my fans what they would like to see me blab about on YouTube, and I was told to practically give a history lesson in my lingerie. So, as you see, this is my lingerie. Isn't it adorable? Now, I didn't have any like real historical lingerie that I could really access right now because I'm kind of stuck in this one room for the moment while everyone else is sleeping. Shh, it's like 5 in the morning it's 4:30 in the morning. Anyway, so I wasn't really the best student in school, especially when it came to history. And it's not that I don't find history super interesting and I love it and I just love anything old and awesome. It's just that I was a total fuck up in high school and did not pay attention to anything I should have been paying attention to. Um, so basically, I'm going to go through and tell you my take on history and what I know and not really associate things I learned in school. Like, seriously, I did a whole project on how Chester Cheeto was the reason the Salem witch trials took place. And like back when I was like 16 when I did this report, there was this like crazy thing going around with Cheetos that was all like, "Oh my God, help Chester Cheeto find the recipe," blah blah blah. And so me and my best friend at the time like just decided to be totally stupid and make fun of it, and like we just basically totally were assholes about the Salem witch trials, which I find really interesting, but I think the people who started them were just fucking morons, obviously. You just killed a bunch of innocent people for nothing. Way to go, assholes. Anyway, so we decided to just make a mockery out of their whole thing, and we made a poster board, and it was just like linking Chester Cheeto to the Salem witch trials, just like everything, how it was some conspiracy, how the government used the missing Cheeto recipe to distract everyone so they can kill people for witchcraft, like all sorts of stuff. And then we had a video where people just kept running around and like calling random shit a witch. Like this guy was like, "Oh shit, I got a sandwich," and the squirrel ran in, and the squirrel was like, "Oh my God," and he stole the sandwich, and the guy was like, "My sandwich," and he's like, "A witch, a witch." And then, they sent the squirrel to do the witch test, and yeah, it was really stupid, but this isn't about my high school project. This is about whatever I know about history now. So, um, first of all, I'm pretty interested in like the Victorian era and the Salem witch trials and anything Victorian and under. I know a lot about Victorian insane asylums. I guess I could start there because they're really fucking cool and really fucked up. But like, I mean, pretty much in the 1800s, if you got put in an asylum, you were usually a woman, and it could have been for anything. Like any close man in your life could like literally just sign you away to the asylum with no questions asked. Like if he wanted a new wife, and back then divorce was really looked down upon. So if you wanted a new wife, he could just sign you off and send you away and fuck the handmaiden or whatever. So that was an interesting thing. They also didn't use anesthesia. I think it was founded in, well, it was definitely after the 1840s. I just can't remember when. So there's one fail in this history lesson, strike one. Um, but there was also like clitoridectomies, which if you don't know what that is, it basically was where the doctor would cut off the little girl's clitoris so that they couldn't feel any stimulation during sex, so they wouldn't do it for fun or cheat on their husbands or whatever. They also used to wear really, really tight corsets. And I mean, girls today wear corsets, but they're not as legit unless you're badass like me and a few other girls who will make sure they can't breathe when you're wearing a corset because that's what's proper. But a lot of women actually died from that because it crushed their insides slowly. It was pretty fucked up. If you ever seen Moulin Rouge, that's how she died, actually. The lead character who Nicole Kidman played, but I can't remember her name in the movie. But it's an awesome movie if you haven't seen it. But basically, also in asylums, they use really rusty tools. They'd have women, like hundreds of women, shoved in one little cage for. It was disgusting, lots of disease, and most people didn't make it out alive. Death tolls were ridiculously high. That's why haunted or insane asylums are like really haunted and everything from the olden days, because everyone was so fucked up and like it was terrible. And you just think of those conditions, like what if you got thrown in that shit? And if I lived back then, I'd totally be thrown in that shit because I'm a total psychopath. But also with the Victorian era, that's when they had a lot of trouble with gravediggers and grave robbers even, because that's when like medicine was on the rise and everyone was running to school to be a doctor. But cadavers were really, it was really hard to find cadavers basically that you could use for testing, because that's when Christianity was also getting really big, and it started making everybody, totally crazy and think if they donated their body to science that they would go to hell automatically. They had to have a proper burial or they'd go to hell. So people started building cages around their coffins, and I mean, like, here's your gravesite right here, and they have this like giant wire cage, and it would just entrap the body, and basically, or they'd even bury him in concrete. And a lot of people speculate today that it was because it was a fear of vampires, which, I mean, it could be true. There could be some underlying fear there of vampires, but the truth is it was mostly for grave diggers and people who were robbing people from the grave and everything, or people who like to have sex with the bodies, which there were quite a few people that back then who really liked to fuck some corpses. Anyway, another thing, I know a lot of like weird Victorian superstitions. There's like if someone like, okay, back when people died back then, they'd usually have the wakes in their house, and the dead body would stay there until burial because they couldn't afford to just leave the body somewhere else. That's just where it was proper. So there's a lot of myths associated with that. I don't know if you've ever seen people do like coins over the eyes, but that was actually a way to pay the ferryman across the lake of fire to get to the underworld after death. And that's not a Christian belief. That's just an old superstition. Probably, I mean, considering the underworld, I would consider that probably came from Greek heritage or something. I'm not sure. That made me sound really stupid, but I'm not, I swear. I'm kind of high. But, and then there was also, if you were carrying a dead body out, you had to carry them back feet first so that they couldn't look back into the house, because if they were able to look back into the house, they'd beckon one of the family members to come, and it would like steal the soul of the family member, and that would be the next person in your family to die. And they also would hide or dispose of all mirrors in the house before bringing a dead body into it, because legend has it that the bodies could get trapped in the mirror, or not the bodies, the souls would get trapped in the mirror and the ghost would haunt you forever. There's some other ones. I know a lot of them. It's been a while since I've really done any reading, but Victorians were pretty fucked up. Like, they had all sorts of shit that, like, they were crazy. Like, they did used to, like, drive stakes through women's hearts because they were afraid that they were coming back as vampires, and that was really interesting. What else do I know? I know a lot about Elizabeth Bathory, who was a countess who used to actually, she would kill her handmaidens and women from the city and then bathe in their blood because she felt like it'd give them eternal beauty, which is pretty fucked up, but whatever. But she was actually one of the original bases of Dracula. Her and Vlad the Impaler. Vlad was basically similar to Elizabeth Bathory, where he was very deadly, and he killed a lot of people, and he was fucking creepy. Like, he would like cut off their heads and then impale their skulls onto these wooden stakes, and then he'd eat dinner with them, so he wasn't alone while eating. It was fucking weird, but as you see, that's where he got Vlad the Impaler. What else do I know? Like, I guess this isn't really history, but it is somewhat. Like, fairy tales were originally written as tales of caution, and despite what you've heard with the Disney tales, they are totally fucked up. Like, Snow White didn't run off and marry a prince. Her stepmom was fucked up. In the original Little Mermaid tale, the Little Mermaid dies. She doesn't live happily ever after with her prince. In Little Red Riding Hood's behind her grandmother's death, and she actually fucks the wolf. Bestiality much. There's a lot of different things like that. Original I know some original nursery rhymes that they're about, like London Bridges was actually literally about the falling down of the economy. Um, not the U.S. obviously because it's in London. London Bridges, duh, no shit. Um, what else? Um, there's also this computer really sucks. There's also shit. What's that one? I'm trying to think of different nursery rhymes, but I'm drawing a blank. Like half alive right now. 440. Awesome. Um, but I mean, there's a lot of cool shit. Like, I bet you didn't know that, like, in the Salem witch trials, there was actually a guy who was considered a hero because he refused to admit to being a witch. His name was Giles Corey, and he was actually in the play The Crucible. Like, Arthur Miller actually used his real name. He actually used all real names. He played a little bit on it, you know, with his own personal story, but this was actually a historical fact. But Giles Corey was accused of being a witch, and instead of like saying he was a witch because he was gonna be killed anyway, but instead of just saying he was a witch and being done with it, he actually allowed himself to be tortured to death. They stacked really heavy stones on top of his chest, and every time they'd stack it on, they'd say, "Are you a witch?" And he would just reply, "More weight." And so he was actually considered a hero of the Salem witch trials, in a sense. I mean, he's dead, but he's still kind of a hero. What else do I know? Holy shit. I feel like I know so much history and can't think of anything right now. That's kind of fucking stupid. Um, wow. Like, with how much I read about, like, the Victorian era, I can't believe I'm drawing such a blank with that. That's a little ridiculous. What other history shit can I tell you? I don't really know anything about the US. Not gonna lie, I don't care. I mean, it's interesting in its own sense, but I'm not that big of a fan of wars. I'm more interested in the stranger parts of history, I suppose you could say, like older books and, you know, things like I love the Victorian era, obviously. I love their outfits. I love the fucking. They were so fucked up, the Victorians. Like, they were so obsessed with death. Oh, there's another one. If you. If someone were to die, you had to wear black for like 6 months after their death in mourning. Otherwise, you would die with, I believe, what the superstition was, and that was pretty interesting. I bet that's kind of where we got the whole, you know, black from mourning shit from. Um, Widows were, like, it was required for widows to wear a veil over their face because they weren't allowed to hide, like, they had to hide their faces, basically, so the spirits couldn't come back to haunt them. Um, Wow, there's so much cool shit in history. I wish I could think of it all right now. I might have to do a part two. Maybe I should start doing lingerie literature lessons and lingerie theater lessons and not math or science because I really sucked at those. And not Spanish either because I can't speak Spanish to save my life. I'm so stupid. Oh, here's a funny fact about history. Hitler had a poop fetish. True story. He got off to people pooping on him or watching people get pooped on. This isn't, I'm not even kidding. Also, Napoleon Bonaparte was actually a normal height. The only reason he was considered like short was because he was always depicted with his armed guards who were always much larger than him because they were his guards. I bet you guys didn't know that, did ya? And I think that's about all I can really think of right now. But I have a beautiful bowl waiting for me and some King of the Hill. So you guys have a good night, and I'm gonna enjoy the rest of mine. Bye bye.